Welcome to Careful Consideration of Our Common Concerns. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. A number of people have asked me to not run away from YouTube, so for the moment I'll be posting these videos there as well as on Rumble, but Rumble is going to be my primary site. A number of you have also asked for an update on Joe Biden. And rather than show you the videos you've already seen where he walks slowly with a minimal arm swing, doesn't quite shuffle, he reads from a set of notes, a bunch of pictures to know who's who, and stumbles through everything, or the fall on Air Force One, not one fall, but three, we all know that he is failing. I will refer you to my older video on Joe Biden's health from about 6 months ago on YouTube. Go to Ted Noel channel. You'll find it. It's very quick to find it. And so with that, I'm going to make only one real comment because I don't have a lot of medical information to go for on this. In my prior video, I suggested that the most likely explanation was that he had prefrontal dementia developing, but I couldn't be all that sure. And as we look at him now, he is an old 78, whereas if you look at Donald Trump, he is a young 74. And that is the difference. Joe just doesn't have any vigor, and he gives the appearance of failing. And that's really what you expect. Now, I'm going to shift to COVID conspiracy theories and things that follow from that. And the big conspiracy theory is that COVID-19 was engineered as a bioweapon. And what goes on is that you take a virus and you splice it with various bits and pieces from other viruses in what's called gain of function research. And there is good evidence that this may very well be happening. When we look at the literature back in 2006, there was a piece published from another Chinese virology lab where they used SARS-CoV-2, which is the formal name for COVID-19, as part of building a bigger, fancier virus for God knows what purpose. But the point is, they knew about that in 2006. And because of 2006 publication, it was probably in 2005 or 2004 that they were working on it. So that bug's been around a long time. There is some evidence that it got loose from the lab. All of the wet market hypothesis is really proving to be garbage. And the question really is, why was this Wuhan lab dealing with this virus? And we know, for example, that they got a bunch of money from us through Anthony Fauci. Have we heard of him before? Oh yeah, that guy who flip-flops worse than a fresh-caught fish on deck. You can't believe a thing the guy says. And the bottom line is, Judicial Watch is out there protecting our wallets and our liberties, and they're trying to chase down the source and the justifications and all the other stuff for our money going to a Chinese lab. Now, the question arises about vaccines. So let's talk about vaccines. We know that the original modern introduction of vaccines was by Edward Jenner in 1796, and he observed that milkmaids who were exposed to cows with cowpox didn't get smallpox. And so he went from that to the first modern demonstration that became a widespread practice. And as such, he's considered the father of vaccination. Now, we know that vaccines have been used for a whole lot longer than that. They just weren't called that, and the science wasn't very well defined. So, moving from that, a standard vaccine for decades has been take the virus, cripple it in some way, In this case, go back to Jenner, cowpox is sort of a crippled smallpox virus. It shares a lot of its structure. And then you take this crippled virus, fancy word is attenuated, and you inject it. And the immune system sees the virus, creates antibodies to it, and now you become immune. But what we have to say here is your immunity does not necessarily depend on antibodies. That's the immediate defense. What you have also are what are called memory T cells. And those memory T cells keep track of the virus for a long, long time. Now, even that memory is not perfect. Any of you who have had to get a shingles shot like I did are looking at the problem that eventually immunity fades for a variety of reasons. And so you need to get a booster, or in the case of shingles, or of varicella, which was chicken pox, it can reactivate and you get shingles, which is not the slightest bit pleasant. And it can cause lifelong pain. So we don't want to deal with that. When I was doing pain medicine, that was part of what I dealt with. Now, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are different. They say that we want to not inject the virus. We want to inject something that will create a protein, a key protein on the surface of the virus, so that your body will recognize that key protein, create immunity to it, and then you will be protected from the virus. So what they did was take a different approach, and they use what's called messenger RNA. And what this does, it gets taken into the cells. It lasts 30 minutes to an hour, perhaps, maybe 2 hours. And it, through a process called transcription and translation, makes the spike protein from the surface of COVID-19. That spike protein then gets expressed on the surface of cells, and your body recognizes it as not me, creates antibodies, and now you have immunity established. The nice part is that the messenger RNA goes one direction and one direction only. It goes into the ribosome. It does not go into the nucleus where DNA is, so you cannot get DNA changes from it. Anybody who suggests that is not telling the truth. So the key here is you just picked a different way to create an understanding of what is me and what is not me. Now, there are concerns. There are doctors Vanden Bush, Stoller, Mikovits, and some others who've come up with a whole bunch of objections. And they go, first of all, it's not perfect. Well, no vaccine is. There isn't anything in this world that is absolutely perfect. There's always going to be some misses. You know, we have hits, we have misses. And so you look at that and you go, okay, we've got something that's pretty darn good. And it's as good as we know how to make it. As I said, they make a claim about gene therapy, that it could get into the nucleus and change your DNA. That claim is pure garbage. Messenger RNA is not taken into the nucleus. The cell doesn't do that. Therefore, it cannot get near your DNA to change anything. That technology is called CRISPR-Cas9 and is a completely different discussion. So, the next one they talk about is polyethylene glycol. Okay, it can cause anaphylaxis. Oh yes. When I was in medical school in the early 1970s, one of the popular injectable drugs used a lot for seizures was, Valium. Valium is not water soluble, so it was prepared in ethylene glycol. That's your everyday, ordinary antifreeze. It's a little tiny bit of it that's used to make it soluble. You inject it, the stuff stings. And guess what? There is anaphylaxis to whatever the other parts of this preparation are, but we already know the numbers. Anaphylaxis happens 1 in 1.1 million shots. You heard me. It's literally a 1 in a million event. It's like a whole bunch of other things. So small, it's real, but if somebody grabs hold of it, they can be scaremongers and say something that isn't true. Now, adverse effects from the anti-spike antibody. Once again, this is nonsense, because let's suppose that the antibody stays on that cell. It will. But all of the proteins on the cell get recycled again and again and again. They do not keep going. And so before very long, that spike protein gets taken back in and recycled into something else. So even if you get antibodies attacking a few cells, it isn't enough to get excited about. Okay, they argue about the liposomes that are used. Oh, those are horrible things. Guess what? We've been using liposomal medications for decades. One of them was used in my anesthesia practice, where we took liposomal encapsulated marcaine, bupivacaine, and we used it to create an extended release form of local anesthetic specifically for injections in, for example, a shoulder joint where somebody had had a rotator cuff repair or things of the like, so that you could take a drug that would normally last 6 to 12 hours and make it last 48 hours. Been used for a long time. They're very safe. And then the claim is, well, we have no long-term studies. Yeah, we haven't had that long. But would you rather get sick with this bug and die now, or take a chance on getting sick later? Now, I'm inflating the language a little bit here because that's the way they do it. Oh, this is a deadly disease. It's really not that deadly. It's maybe a little worse than the flu overall, but not much more. And with our new therapeutics, it is rare for people to even need to be hospitalized. So get real. Then they scream about 12,000 deaths in the adverse event reporting system. Guess what? There may be. It doesn't mean a thing. Most of them are going to be unrelated to the vaccination. Just like how many people got listed as a COVID-19 death when they had a heart attack? Lots. Once these all get sorted out, you're going to have a very small amount. And then the question is, well, it can cause a cross-reaction to cause an autoimmune disease. At most, maybe. But guess what? That's once again 1 in a million type stuff. You can't drink water or breathe air without ultimately dying. That is the nature of the beast. Life predisposes to death. And if you're going to sit there and say, well, I don't want to get this because I get that, guess what? You're so worried about the irritating cat on your right that you forget about the wolf on your left. This is nuts. Then there are a list of, you've got to be kidding, concerns. The first one is that only the vaccine will create herd immunity, and that is pure BS. And it serves only to perpetuate government programs. Herd immunity happens naturally without vaccines. Epidemics come when there aren't enough people immune. Let's go back to 1847 and a place called Waiilatpu, Washington. That is the place of the ryegrass. And Marcus and Narcissa Whitman had established a mission to the Cochise Indians. And it was a trading post. It was a passage on the Oregon Trail. And the Cochise Indians had no immunity to measles. Somebody came through with the measles. Cochise got it. A bunch of them died. Ultimately, we have the Whitman Massacre. But why didn't the white people die from it? Herd immunity. Everybody had a little degree of immunity. And when you got sick, yeah, you got sick, but you got over it because you had some immune response. Now, the next one that's just complete insanity is that getting the vaccine will make you more prone to getting variants. Oh, you got vaccinated against the original COVID-19, the South African variant is now going to kill you, or the UK variant is going to kill you, or, Brazilian variant. No, that is idiocy in the extreme. First, all of the vaccines have cross coverage to the others. It isn't perfect cross coverage, but it is cross coverage. So all of those vaccines will actually protect you to some degree against the variants. But let's suppose that you had no protection whatever from a variant when you got vaccinated for the original COVID-19. Saying you're not going to get vaccinated for COVID-19 because it will make you more susceptible to the South African variant, let's say, is complete insanity. You have the same risk of getting the South African variant after vaccination as you do before. None whatever. The argument is about like saying, because I stepped off the curb and that Chevrolet missed me, the Ford in the next lane is definitely going to get me. No, it isn't going to get you. They could stop, whatever else. Or let's take it in a disease form. Because I got the flu vaccine, I'm now going to die from measles. That's how stupid it is. We have to think. And then the second one that is just absolutely out of your mind, you've got to be kidding nuts, is that you still have to wear a mask after you've been vaccinated. I've already gone through the fact that masks don't stop disease spread. Look at my last video up on Rumble and on YouTube. Those concerns are garbage. First of all, the masks don't affect aerosols except for an N95 and then only when you're breathing in. There is no evidence that masks have any effect on disease transmission in the general population. There is some evidence, actually, that wearing masks may make you more susceptible to disease, not necessarily COVID-19, but other diseases. So, this is nonsense. Lots of studies talk about mechanisms. Lots of studies talk about stopping droplets. And now we know that you have a choice. You can either wear a simple mask of one layer of something that you can breathe through real easy, made out of t-shirt material, let's say, and that won't filter worth crap. Or you can wear a mask that really filters super, super good, but you can't breathe through it, which means you breathe around it. And we know that when you get a total leak area the size of a quarter, 2/3 of all the protection from a mask just disappears in terms of aerosols. Bottom line, it's nonsense. And concerns about being outdoors never was a problem. UV radiation and air movement mean that you just aren't going to get it outdoors. State of Florida, you could count the cases on the fingers of one hand at most. So that's nonsense. Now, the final thing is travel and grandkids. Grandma and grandpa got their shots. Are they safe around their grandkids? Absolutely. They're not going to be perfectly safe, but they're going to be as safe as it is ever possible to be, because unlike those who are spreading panic porn and saying, well, they can still spread the virus, no, you can't. It is a basic premise of virology that once you are immune, you can neither get sick from the virus nor spread it. And we know from massive studies that asymptomatic spread simply is not real. So there we have it. What we've got going right now are a bunch of would-be dictators who are using panic porn to scare us into accepting their radical agenda by declaring no one will be safe until we have total safety, which cannot exist. Until next time, take a look at those links below Join me on MeWe or on Parlay, the new non-censoring, non-tracking versions of Facebook and Twitter. But if you must use the old left-wing censoring versions, we're still on Facebook and at VidZet on Twitter. The message is what matters. I'm Dr. Ted Noel. Thanks for watching.